Now, again, this is a basketball podcast, but football season is right around the corner. You got college football starting this weekend, NFL the next week, fantasy football coming up. Brandon, where's your head at? Is it in the NBA or is it in football?
My head is always a little bit in the NBA, at least, but this is like the most down part of the NBA season. It's about to pick back up soon. But I would say my mind is mostly in football right now, and specifically because I'm a Dallas Cowboys fan, my mind is more in fantasy football than the NFL right now as far as my team goes. I am looking forward to college football kicking off this weekend, though, too, with OU and OSU playing.
We are in a fantasy football league together. How do you feel about your team?
Feel good about my team. So I don't normally do this, but I went really wide receiver heavy, more so than I meant to. So I've got like Calvin Ridley coming off the bench in a full PPR league. Like that's how loaded I am at wide receiver. But it's because our settings, we only start one running back. So I have Jonathan Taylor and then a bunch of – I didn't select another running back till like round 29 or something like that. How do you feel about your team?
We switched platforms to Sleeper, and then somehow my draft board got triggered for auto pick, and two players were auto picked that I was not intending to select where I selected them. One's Kyler Murray, and the other was Ricky Pearsall.
I think you've got a good team. I think that the auto draft, obviously, that's always a bummer. Like even if the auto draft, like Ricky Pearsall, that's not a bad pick. That's your favorite team. And right now, he's their wide receiver one. That's not bad, but it's never the guy you want. And you always wonder, how much better would my team be if we got the guy that I selected? But hey, maybe AI knows what it's doing, and they selected you a better team. We'll see.
Welcome back to the Daily Thunder podcast. I'm John Napier, publisher of Daily Thunder, and I'll be your host today. Alongside me is Daily Thunder beat writer Brandon Rahbar. Brandon, how are you at the end of August?
I am doing well. I am excited to get basketball going again soon. It feels like it's on the horizon. Like we're getting into close to September, and then September, there's going to be some training camp news and things like that. So I feel like we're getting close, John. I can almost taste it, but it's still not quite there.
Well, let's talk basketball, though, because, the Thunder won a championship, and I'm sure there's some excitement about what the Thunder might do in this upcoming season. So there is stuff to talk about. There's an audience for basketball, even at this low point of the season before the calendar turns and we get to training camp. Does that sound okay to you?
Let's do this.
So we'll do a more serious basketball analysis segment at this top, and then we'll do a little bit of historical discussions where we examine the top 10 NBA or top 10 Thunder draft picks in history. But let's start with an analysis of the landscape around the NBA. And let's talk not just about the Western Conference, although that's going to be the key one, because the Thunder have to make it out of the West, but also the Eastern Conference. And Brandon, who are your impact free agent acquisitions in this offseason?
I mean, it's got to be KD at the top of the list. The Rockets were already the number 2 seed in the West. The one thing that kept them from being a true threat, look, they got the 2 seed, but I don't think anybody took them seriously in the postseason. They needed a go-to scorer. Their go-to scorer was Jalen Green. He's just so up and down, so inconsistent, so pretty inefficient as a go-to guy, young and unproven still. You switch that out for KD, one of the greatest scorers in NBA history. Even at his age, he is still incredibly efficient. I think that the Rockets getting KD moves them from pretend contender, so pretender to true contender. I think that Kevin Durant has to be at the top of this list.
About Kevin Durant, I'm going to put you on the spot here a little bit, because we talked about last week that we're going to get SGA, J-Dub, and Chet as they reach the peak of their careers and at the peak of their kind of career based upon the typical basketball life cycle. Where do you think KD is on that peak cycle?
Like current KD, as far as his peak, like, is that what you mean? Like, as far as like he hit his peak, where is he at now?
Has he hit his peak? Yeah. Is he on the downhill?
He's definitely on the down slope of his career. But that said, he's still one of the 10 best players in the NBA. But at his peak, he was arguably the best player in the NBA, along with LeBron and Curry. I think any given year you could say it was either LeBron, Curry, or KD for a few years. Right now, I think he's firmly right around the 10-ish spot. So he's on the downslope, but still, an elite player that makes a huge difference for this Rockets team because he's exactly what they needed.
And that's scoring, right? I mean, is that really – and what does that mean for the remainder of their roster and the development of like Şengün or something?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it does take, some of the scoring pressure off of Şengün to kind of have the offense go through him. When you have Kevin Durant, he's going to require so much attention. Look, nobody was giving Jalen Green the kind of attention you're going to give Kevin Durant. I mean, Jalen Green, sure, he could go off for 30 any given night, but he's just as likely to go off for 12 any given night on the same number of shots. And you're talking about, a guard versus like a near 7-foot wing. So Kevin Durant brings the exact scoring punch and threat that they need, and he will make things a lot easier for Şengün. And Şengün is the kind of guy that, yes, he scores, but he also likes to facilitate. So I think that we'll see, Şengün still kind of be a hub, but with less pressure on him and less pressure on, all the other kind of peripheral scores that the Rockets have. And you have so many defenders now. Like you got Amen Thompson, who's like truly an elite defender already, even being so young. And, if he takes any sort of leap, you've got, potential all-star caliber player with Amen Thompson, with KD, with Alperen Şengün. Like KD just kind of fits in and lets everybody play their role to the best of their ability. So as much as I don't like to say it, the Rockets got much better by adding KD. I think the Thunder are still clearly the better team. But if we're talking about like which free agent, signings do the Thunder, need to be aware of and could be a potential threat to the Thunder, I would say KD has to be at the top of the list.
All right. Who's next on your list?
This is a little bit of a cheat, but I think they all kind of go together. I'm going to say the Nuggets depth. Just like we can't count Cam Johnson because that was a trade. You're basically flipping Michael Porter Jr. for Cam Johnson. So that's not a part of this. I am going to cheat and count Valanciunas, even though that was a trade. But basically, Valanciunas, getting Bruce Brown back, signing Tim Hardaway Jr., they're just deeper than they were last year. And that was the thing that the Nuggets, really, really were lacking, was just bench pieces, depth. And this is going to make them a stronger team. The Nuggets and Rockets were probably the biggest threats in the West anyways. And those two teams, got better through free agency and trades. And so, yeah, it's got to be the Nuggets and their depth pieces.
Yeah, and I think in your rankings, you had the Rockets and the Nuggets on the heels of the Thunder, or at least 2-3 trailing the Thunder in your top 10. Yeah,
I did, and those two teams got better, and I know that KD was a trade as well. Like, yeah, I was same free agent. I'm looking at the teams that added pieces to get better, and then there's another team, and it just so happens to be the team that I have ranked. Talking about rankings. Next, fourth, I have the Nuggets second. I have the Rockets third. I think they both got better through free agency and trades. And I think that the fourth team in the West got better via free agencies and trades.
And that is?
Oh, that is the Clippers. The Clippers added some pretty nice pieces as well. Unfortunately, again, the top of the West already really, really tough. Gets better. Like, obviously, we could talk about the Lakers. They added a much-needed center, a big, and DeAndre Ayton. Obviously, the Mavs got better. Like, the West just got better all around. But I do like what the Clippers did. You added Bradley Beal. I get it. I get that Bradley Beal last year for $50 million is not the ideal piece that you want on your team. You're not going to be able to contend if Bradley Beal is supposed to be your third best player making $50 million a year. But if Bradley Beal is supposed to be your fifth or sixth best player making $5 million a year, that's a much different conversation. And, the Clippers added him and Chris Paul, which was a need, having another guy off the bench who could facilitate and be a playmaker. Again, this is a trade, but then trading, Norman Powell for John Collins, I think that the 2, 3, 4 spots all improved. And I think that you could slot the Lakers in as the fifth best team, and they got better too.
Yeah, and we'll give credit to acquisitions by trade in addition to free agency, because that's really what matters, right? Which teams added and are threats to the Thunder, and which are the impact acquisitions here in this offseason. So you already talked a little bit about the Lakers. Do you have any more to add on their acquisitions?
Adding DeAndre Ayton, obviously big. The only other thing I would add is an in-shape Luka Doncic. They added him. They basically traded, sort of injured, I hate to say out of shape because these are NBA players, and Luka Doncic was still an incredible elite player, even being quote unquote out of shape. But obviously he's taking his conditioning very seriously this summer, and he's kind of gone on a press tour to talk about it, and I do think that will make a difference. I think that they've added DeAndre Ayton and a motivated, because of the Mavs, motivated and more in shape Luka Doncic, and I think that helps him as well.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see Luka Doncic out there, a skinnier version of himself. Who's next on your list?
That would be pretty much it. The Warriors haven't done anything. I would think they're next in line as far as rankings go, and they haven't done anything. They're just stuck in mud with the Jonathan Kuminga, piece, whether or not to sign him, whether or not to trade him. And so they just decided not to make any moves until the Kuminga saga is over. And then the Wolves honestly just got worse. They lost Nickeil Alexander-Walker and haven't really added anything to replace him. So I think they've gotten worse. And then you get into, the Spurs should be better, obviously, but that was more through the draft and then just internal development and improvement. And then you get into teams who aren't really, playoff contenders. So I think, to me, you got to look at the top of the West, and most of those teams got better. But hey, the Thunder should get better as well. What they added was obviously through the draft and Sorber and Barnhizer, but then also internal development is going to be the biggest key. And then adding Nikola Topic, him getting healthy.
I'm a little shocked you mentioned the Spurs and you skipped over two critical acquisitions the Spurs made this offseason. You didn't mention Adam Flagler on an E10 contract and Lindy Waters on a 1-year deal.
I apologize.
Two former Thunder greats.
You're right. I do apologize to both Adam and to Lindy, especially to Lindy. Mr. Oklahoma, born and bred. Sorry about that. You're right. I hope both of them stick and do well with the Spurs.
Now, you focused on Western teams, and one other acquisition I thought was notable in the West, and I'm not sure they're going to be competitive for a championship, but this is another former Thunder player, had a breakout season with the Cavs. The Grizzlies added Ty Jerome. Do you like that addition for the Grizzlies?
I do like that. Ty Jerome is honestly one of the most valuable, I think, when you just look at contract to player output and talent. I think that was one of the best contracts signed this offseason. And obviously, look, I don't think the Grizzlies are going to be as good because they lost Desmond Bane. But what they lost in him, more than anything was the outside shooting and spacing that he provides. I think that Ty Jerome is one of the better shooters in the league, and he will at least be able to provide that spacing and shooting that Desmond Bane did, not to the degree, not to the volume, and probably not the threat as far as a defensive mindset goes. But I do think that that was a really, really nice signing by them.
And then in the East, is there anybody in the East that you thought had a really good offseason with their acquisitions or free agency moves?
Yeah, I mean, speaking of Desmond Bane, the Magic had a really nice offseason, and the Hawks had a really nice offseason. I think those two teams in the East, especially with Jason Tatum and Tyrese Halliburton both out, so you got the Celtics and the Pacers probably not contending this upcoming year, obviously. So the Cavs and Knicks are really the only two teams that everybody's looking at in the East as true threats. And so, a team like the Magic, a team like the Hawks, making some improvements. They were already playoff teams. You add some talent, things go the right way. Maybe they can find themselves in the Eastern Conference Finals. I can't see either of those teams upsetting the Cavs or the Knicks, but I do think that both teams improved enough to be in the West, in the East, a contender. As far as, if you have to make a list past the Cavs and Knicks in the East, I think that you could include them now.
Yeah, and this might be the best Hawks team that Trae Young has ever had.
It could be, which is funny because he took a Hawks team to the Eastern Conference Finals. It seems crazy now looking back on it. Things kind of broke their way, but I do think that this will be the best team that Trae's been on. And look, Trae, I think, has been really become underrated in the NBA. Like when you look at player rankings, when you look at players who probably don't get the respect that they deserve, whether it be from the media or from fans or from their peers or what have you, I think Trae Young is one of those guys. And so I'm excited to see Trae with a better team and with the kind of a depleted East to see what the Hawks can do.
Well, there's some good basketball analysis to whet everybody's appetite ahead of training camp and I guess ahead of football season. And so let's have a little fun now because the Thunder are known for being savvy draft pickers. And that's, Sam Presti's bag is going out and getting these generational talents by the draft, like Russ, like Kevin Durant. But he's also had a ton of success drafting in the second round and getting players who, weren't at the top of everybody's draft board. So let's do a top 10 list. Everybody likes a good list. And let's run through the top 10 draft picks in Thunder history. For the rules, it has to be a draft pick. So anybody acquired by trade obviously does not count, which takes Shea out of the mix. But it could include a draft night trade where the Thunder acquires somebody's rights to a pick on the night of the draft. So let's start with number 10, Brandon. Who do you have as the 10th best draft pick in Thunder history?
I am going to say at number 10, I will go with a player who was selected at number 10, and that is Cason Wallace. I think that when Cason was drafted, a lot of fans and a lot of media were really confused because nobody expected the Thunder to draft a guard. And, the Thunder jumped up from 12 to 10 to make this pick. They really wanted Cason. They targeted Cason. And I think now, 2 years into his career, where Cason Wallace has been in the rotation from day one and has been an impact player on a championship team, we can see why Sam Presti traded up 2 spots to take this guard that nobody expected them to take.
Yeah, and that takes me back to that draft night because I was a little perplexed. We traded up for Cason and, wasn't really sure why he was so sought after by the organization to make that move. But clearly Presti knew what he was doing because Cason has been a critical part of the team and was a critical part of that NBA Finals and championship run. So let's go to number 9. Who's number 9 on your list?
Number 9 is a player that he's not real popular amongst Thunder fans anymore, but I had to include him because this was a really, really good pick. It would be Reggie Jackson, selected 24th overall in the 2011 draft. This is a guy who, he was really good for the Thunder. If you remember back to that year when Russ got hurt and Reggie had to play big minutes, he was really important for that team. And He ended up having a really long NBA career, many teams, but to get a guy at the number 24 spot who's played as long and as well as Reggie has for as many teams as he has, I think that's a pretty great pick.
Yeah, and as soon as you mentioned it was maybe a player that Thunder fans didn't love, knew exactly who you were talking about. And Reggie Jackson was. I mean, he was really, really good for the team as a backup point guard and was a great value pick at number 24. So have to agree that he belongs on the list. How about at number 8?
Number 8 is a fan favorite, currently on the team, caused a lot of confusion and a lot of memes the night he was drafted because he was also drafted about 20 spots earlier than he was drafted, 22 to be exact, with the number 34 pick in the 2022 draft, Jalen Williams, J-Will.
All right, so J-Will cracks the top 10. Makes me wonder whether there's another Jalen that's going to make this list. But, I mean, it's a pretty big impact for him at this point of his career. And really, this is the first year of him making a meaningful impact. Do you feel like that's too high? I guess, you feel really good about him at number 8?
So, look, I understand that Reggie, through this point in Jay Will's career, had a bigger impact and played more and things like that. And Kaysen has played more and been the better player so far, all those things. But look, at the number 34 spot, when you're picking in the second round, that is a crapshoot. Like, if you go through that second round of that draft, just try to find guys who are in the rotation. And Jay Will may not be in the rotation every night, but when he plays well. And then the impact that he's had, I'd say, in the locker room, as a voice in the huddle, and then in the community with fans, being a fan favorite. Like, Jay Will means so much, I think, to this team and this community and this fan base. And you got him at number 34, and he just signed his extension. He's going to be here for many more years. I feel really good about putting J. Will number 8.
That sounds good. And he's actually, he's one of my favorites. I love a big J. Will smile.
Exactly.
Who's at number 7?
All right, so number 7, I cheated a little bit, John. I had 11 that had to be on this list, and so I cheated by putting 2 together because 1, they were in the same draft class. 2, they became BFFs, and so I think that they fit together. Do you have any idea who I'm going to say here with all those clues?
No, I'm on the spot now. I'm in trouble. Why don't you just drop it on us?
The number 7 pick from the 2013 draft, number 12 overall, Steven Adams, and number 26 overall, Andre Robertson. Steven also became a fan favorite, had a huge impact. I would say until this year, would be considered the best center in Thunder history. Now he's probably number 3, maybe. Chet's definitely number 1, maybe Hartenstein 2. I don't know, however you want to rank it. But Steven, to get a guy like that at number 12, first of all, I think that he far outperformed his draft status. Like, he's played better than a typical number 12 overall pick plays, but then also becoming a fan favorite. He's had a long career. He made a big impact on winning teams. And then just the hilarious dude and person that he is. And then Andre Robertson. Before his injury, he was absolutely on track to be first team All-NBA defense. He had made an all-defensive team before. He was even in Defensive Player of the Year conversations, one of the best perimeter defenders in the league during his peak. I think to get a guy like that at number 26 overall, you can talk about his shooting, but the guy played really smart basketball, made an impact on all those winning teams. There's a reason why he was a starter on teams that went to the finals and the Western Conference Finals multiple times. I feel really good about putting Steven and Dre here in the list.
Well, and because I love both of those guys, I will let you break the rules and have 2 in one spot. How about at number 6? Just don't do it again, Brandon.
Okay. All right. Last time. Number 6. Okay. Now, this may seem too high, and I get it. but I'm going to have to go with James Harden in the 2009 NBA draft. He was selected number 3. Okay, but if you go back to this draft, everybody thought that the Thunder should pick Ricky Rubio, maybe Tyreke Evans, and those two guys went 4 and 5. Tyreke went at 4. Rubio went at 5. By the way, Steph Curry went at number 7. But James Harden obviously becomes an MVP, Sixth Man of the Year while he was in Oklahoma City, a part of the finals team in 2012. I understand that he's a number 3 pick and you expect number 3 players to be great, but considering that was considered at the time a surprise when many thought it was going to be Ricky Rubio and there were questions about whether or not this was the right pick, obviously that ended up being an incredible pick.
The consensus was a great pick for the Thunder at number 3, looking back on it. Kind of actually surprised that he is not higher on this list. So what's number 5?
So number 5, I'm trying to think is if I could give you a clue without giving it away. Oh, that one's too easy. He once famously stole or accused Kevin Durant of stealing his water bottle. Do you remember that? I'm talking about Air Congo.
I was going to say Serge, but
really?
no, we're going to have. But we're going to have to edit this out because I look like an idiot. Because the water bottle thing was iconic, and I was like, that was Serge, right? And then I started to doubt myself, and I didn't want to come off looking like a fool here. But I should have just shot my shot because I control the edits. I can just edit myself out if it didn't sound right.
You should have just guessed 10 people, just kept guessing until you're right, and then just edit all the other guesses out.
That's right. I should just thrown out Perry Jones or something and see where that took us.
So Serge was taken at number 24 in the 2008 draft. Spoiler alert, another player from the 2008 draft will be upcoming in this list. But Serge, obviously, big role player for those Thunder teams. His rim protection, blocking shots, became a 3-point threat. He was deadly in the mid-range. Arguably the third best player on some teams that went to the Western Conference Finals. Serge was one of the all-time great role players, and again, just like a high character, awesome dude, and a fan favorite. Of course, went on to win a title with the Raptors. Really happy for Serge for doing that, but had a long career. I think Serge was an all-time pick to get him at 24, especially when you consider how raw he was, and he was supposed to take years to develop. And he ended up playing pretty quickly. Yeah,
totally agree. I think if you were to put together your list of the best players in Thunder history, period, Serge is going to rank highly on that list. He had a meaningful impact in that initial run after he was drafted in 2008. So, number 4.
Number 4 was a no-brainer. When we talked about doing this list, I just didn't know how high he would end up going. It is the man who saved basketball. He will have an argument to be the best all-time pick at number 55 overall. Right now it would be Patty Mills. I know famously Bronny James was selected at 55, but Aaron Wiggins at number 55 comes in at number 4 on this list.
Yeah, I mean, that's high praise for Wiggins, but when you take his draft position compared to the value and the impact that he's had, I can see why he's so high on your list.
Yeah, so it's crazy. The 2021 draft for the Thunder, they got Josh Giddey, they got Trey Mann, they ended up trading for Jeremiah Robinson Earl, and they got Aaron Wiggins. So there's a really nice class. Trey obviously, just couldn't find minutes on this team and has looked good when he's been healthy in Charlotte. And then Josh Giddey ended up flipping to be Caruso. So you could count Giddey, I think, in this list because I think he was a good player for the Thunder. And then he also turned into Alex Caruso, who was incredible for the Thunder. But that would be cheating too much. But I think when you look at that draft class, Aaron Wiggins being the one player that remains, and he was the last one picked at number 55. I get it. He's a role player, but he's a great role player. And to get him at number 55 is that's a slam dunk. Home run pick.
All right, number 3.
And honestly, Aaron Wiggins' speech alone is enough to be top 5 on this list. Had he done nothing else except for give that speech in his Thunder career, I think he'd still be top 5. Number 3 is another player. I said there'd be another player from that draft with Serge Ibaka, and that would be one Russell Westbrook from the 2008 draft. Number 4 overall in that draft, Russell Westbrook. And again, much like James Harden, but even more so with this pick, people thought Russ was a reach. People thought it was a bad pick. If you go back and read, analysis from 2008 and what the Thunder did by selecting Russell Westbrook, I mean, it was pretty panned at the time. People thought the pick should be either Eric Gordon, maybe Kevin Love, Danilo Gallinari, obviously all really nice players. Some people thought DJ Augustine or Brook Lopez. It was a pretty solid draft. There were even people who thought Jared Bayless should be the pick for the Thunder at number 4. It ends up being Russell Westbrook, a player that's going to have, his jersey hanging from the rafters, an all-time Thunder legend. I don't need to explain why Russ was a great pick, but he makes this list at number 3.
All right. Actually, I'm going to say I'm shocked. I expected Russ to be number 1 because nobody represents the Thunder like Russell Westbrook does. So now I'm really curious. How do we break this down in 2 and 1? So who's number 2?
So I agree with that. I do agree that Russ. Okay, so Russ could have been higher for sure, but then also he was still a top 5 pick. So when I'm looking overall at the draft picks, and I think you got to give a lot of credit to those who were selected maybe later that became these great players or meant a lot to the Thunder. And so I think that number 2, I don't know if you'll see this coming, John. But when you're just looking at the quality of the draft pick, you said that draft night trades counted. My number 2 is Domantas Sabonis, the number 11 overall pick in the 2016 NBA draft. And why is he so high, John? You got to be wondering, right?
Why don't you tell us? And actually, I have a guess.
Yeah, I mean, everybody should know by now. Famously, Domantas Sabonis obviously had a really nice rookie season in Oklahoma City. But John knows this. You know this. Everybody listening should know this. Domantas Sabonis ended up being traded with Victor Oladipo for Paul George. Paul George ended up being traded for Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and 1,000 first-round picks, which one of those became J-Dub. This, to me, selecting Domantas Sabonis ended up changing the course of Thunder history and set up the stage for the Thunder to win a championship. The Thunder do not win a championship if they do not trade Serge Ibaka for the selection of Domantas Sabonis.
Wow, that's not, I wouldn't say it's a deep cut, but that is some deep analysis as you put it that way. Sabonis might be the most consequential draft pick in Thunder history because it led to SGA.
Yes. And he was taken at number 11. To find that value of this player, of this talent who's become an all-NBA player, an all-star at number 11, but then also to flip that player when you see the opportunity for Paul George and when you see that opportunity to flip that for SGA and all these picks. Yeah, I mean, the Thunder do not win the championship without Sabonis at number 11. So to me, he has to be top 3. If you want to switch these top 3 in any order, I would understand. But to me, these are the clear top 3. Russ at number 3, Sabonis at number 2, and then the number 1 spot.
All right, well, as we get to number 1, I'm going to tell you right now, there are definitely going to be some snubs from this list that's going to generate some questions. So let's find out who you left off by you telling us who you have at number 1.
Number 1, best draft pick in Thunder history has to be Jalen Williams, J-Dub, in 2022 at the number 12 overall pick. I mean, come on. J-Dub in his third season with a torn ligament in his shooting wrist was the second best player, second best scorer, second best playmaker, all-world defender, versatility, all over the place on a team that won the championship. The Thunder do not win a championship without J-Dub, and they got this guy. Again, everybody thought it was a reach. He was a player that was, projected in the early second round leading up to the Combine, but then he moved up at the Combine. He ended up being a player that people projected like in the teens, maybe the late teens, and the Thunder still selected him at number 12, which at the time still kind of like raised some eyebrows. Obviously, an incredible pick that led to a championship.
All right. Well, I knew J-Dub had to be on this list. There was no way he was going to get left off this list. So we know now who wasn't included, but I can tell what you were thinking here. You really did like the picks that had value, right? Picking guys who were considered a reach or going deeper into the draft to get contributors. That seems to be where the weight of your selections were.
Yes, because, look, obviously Kevin Durant, if we were to count him as a supersonic, obviously, if we're just going by, best players, Kevin Durant or Chet would obviously be on the list if we're talking about, 10 best, most impactful, most important players in Thunder history. But, those were no-brainers. Selecting KD at number 2, selecting Chet at number 2, those are still a great pick because you can still mess it up. And we've seen NBA teams mess up the no-brainers. We've seen them mess up number 1 picks. We've seen them mess up top 3 picks all the time. So do credit for those picks, but I was putting a lot of value on, kind of the value picks. Yes.
Yeah. And I mean, you can go down the list and there have been some guys that didn't really pan out the way that were expected. But, overall, to come up with this list in the short tenure of the Thunder with this many high-quality players, and you still, on this list, don't have Kevin Durant and Chet Holmgren, that just is a testament to how well the Thunder have drafted over its lifetime here in Oklahoma City.
Yeah, they've drafted incredibly well. Nobody's going to go 100%, but when you look at not only the track record of great picks, but the fact that they've done it all over the draft. They've got great picks at the top of the draft. They've gotten great picks at the bottom of the lottery. They've gotten great picks at the end of the first round. They've gotten great picks in the second round. Then, of course, undrafted players as well. So the Thunder have kind of drafted well throughout the draft. And that's why I'm excited to see. I think if we were to do this list in 5 years, I would not be surprised to see Topic, Sorber, or A.J. Mitchell, who I think right now even A.J. Mitchell was an honorable mention for me, and I wanted him to make the list, but we've only seen half a season from him so far. But I wouldn't be surprised to see any or all of those guys on the list because I'm high on those guys, and I think they'll prove to be really, really nice picks where the Thunder pick them. And the Thunder are going to be picking throughout the draft for several years because they have several first-round picks for many years to come. So we might see them picking at the bottom of the lottery or at the end of the first round or the middle of the second round. But they have a proven track record of finding quality throughout the draft.
Well, to recap your top 10 of the best draft picks in Thunder history, you have number 10, Cason Wallace, number 9, Reggie Jackson, number 8, Jalen Williams, J. Will, number 7, with a cheat with Steven Adams and Andre Robertson, number 6, James Harden, number 5, Serge Ibaka. Number 4, Aaron Wiggins. Number 3, Russell Westbrook. Number 2, Domantas Sabonis, and a surprise pick. And number 1, Jalen Williams, J-Dub. Reggie Jackson looks at this list, and even he cries tears of joy.
So I got to ask you, John, what would you change about, if this was your list, if you were making this list, what would be your top 3, or what would you say, who did I leave out that you would have included, or who did I rank too low or too high? What would you change?
I think some people may hear this list and they're going to think that you intentionally left off Kevin Durant because of, how the organization and how we as fans feel about Kevin Durant. So, I could make an argument that you you leave off Jay, Will, or Kaysen, and KD slots somewhere in this top 10 list.
I get that. I do. I just think that it was a no-brainer. So it's hard. Like, obviously, if we're making a list of the top 10 players, if we're making a list of the top 3 players, I mean, KD is going to make it. But everybody knew it was going to be either KD or Greg Oden at the top of the draft, and whoever went 1, the other one was going to go 2. So obviously, great pick. But I just don't think when we're grading draft picks, like a no-brainer should be graded as high as like a surprise guy at number 24 who becomes a really impactful player. That's my feeling.
Yeah, and I see that. And you can also make an argument too that number 2 pick with Kevin Durant really wasn't a pick by Presti. As you noted, it was going to be Oden or Durant. And thank goodness for the Thunder that Greg Oden was picked number 1 overall. It made this choice really, really easy for Sam to take Kevin Durant at number 2. I could also make an argument that Chet belongs on this list because, despite he was number 2 overall, there were multiple players who were in competition for those top picks in that draft. And, Chet could have gone number 1, but he could have gone number 3, and the Thunder could have gone a different direction at number 2. So there was some skill, I think, to identify that Chet Holmgren was going to be the guy for the Thunder at number 2.
That is a great point. And I did consider Chet, but to me, he was always the no-brainer choice. I thought he was the best player in that draft. And to me, it was clear that he was better than Jabari Smith Jr., just based on, well, I just thought he was bad. And then based on like all the buzz that we heard about what the Thunder were interested in, it was always going to be Chet. So I guess in my mind, I just kind of like put it on the shelf of like, oh yeah, Chet was always going to be a Thunder player. That was a no-brainer pick. Sam saw it. Everybody saw it. Everybody knew. But you are right though, because at one point, really every point leading up until the actual pick was in, everybody thought Jabari Smith Jr. was going 1 and Chet was going 2 and Paulo was going 3. So I guess there is, some argument out there that people thought that Jabari Smith Jr. should have been number 2. And obviously that would have changed the course of the Thunder, and they don't win a championship right now either. No disrespect to Jabari Smith Jr. So you've kind of talked me into this, John. I may need to change the bottom of my list once we're done with the show, and Chet may need to make an appearance. Maybe it wasn't a no-brainer after all.
Well, I guess at minimum, Chet deserves honorable mention because, yeah, the Thunder don't win a championship without him.
They absolutely do not. His impact was absolutely huge in the playoffs and in the finals. The Thunder don't win without, obviously, Shea, but they don't win without that 2022 draft. They do not win without Dub or Chet. They needed all 3. And then, of course, Caruso. What was so fun about this championship run. There were games or series or moments where, like, everybody on the team made a difference. And obviously, Shea, Dub, and Chet, they were essential throughout the run. But we saw moments of Cason Wallace. We saw moments of Aaron Wiggins. We saw a lot of moments of Alex Caruso and Isaiah Hartenstein and Lou Dort. But yeah, this was a team-wide championship win. But when we're talking about these draft picks, man, Chet and J-Dub in that 2022 draft, just absolutely huge, man.
Well, this was fun. This is a good list. And, brought back some memories of days of old, like with Serge Ibaka. So, yeah, I appreciate you putting together this list, Brandon. It was fun.
Yeah, that was good times. That's good off-season content.
Yeah, and actually, the way that you structured this list and the people that you have on it, the people who are not on it, you've basically written the tweet to promote this podcast for me. It's great. I'm going to have, all kinds of, what's that term? I will have to edit this out. Clickbait. It's clickbait.
Yeah, clickbait. Yeah. And I didn't even mean to make it clickbaity. I was really just going with what I thought were like the best / most valuable, most impressive, most far out there, most, all the above picks. But edited. If I got to edit this, I would probably make an edit where I put Chet in there, but Katie's still out. KD's still out. Sorry.
Well, and hasn't Chet retweeted you? He might just see this podcast. He's going to feel really bad. But we redeemed it. We went through. We gave all the platitudes that Chet deserves here at the end of the podcast.
Well, and really, if anything, it was a compliment to him because I was basically saying he was such a no-brainer because he was so good. He should have been number 1. So, of course, he was going to be the number 2 pick. So, yeah, I feel okay about it, I guess.
All right. And that's all the time we have for today. Thanks for tuning in to the Daily Thunder podcast. I'm John Napier, host of the podcast, and he's Brandon Rahbar, Daily Thunder beat writer. If you enjoyed the show, make sure to subscribe to the Daily Thunder podcast on your favorite podcast app so you don't miss any future episodes. And if you like what you hear, do us a favor and leave us a rating and review wherever you get your podcasts. And we'll be back in your feed soon.